On Thanksgiving, my parents handed my sister an envelope with a $13,000 cruise inside, and she screamed with joy. Then they handed me a card. Inside was a $2 scratch-off lottery ticket and a note in my father's handwriting. Don't spend it all in one place. The whole table laughed. I'm Avery Crawford. I was 34, and I had spent my whole life being the daughter who didn't need anything. So I smiled, slipped the card into my coat, and drove home. 3 weeks later, that $2 ticket was worth $100 million. By the time my family found out, my phone was already showing 79 missed calls. Welcome back to Family Justice Vault, where quiet women with long memories finally get to tell their side. If you've ever been the daughter who got the card while someone else got the cruise, you already know how this story feels before it even starts. Drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and subscribe. Let me back up, because the whole thing makes more sense if you see the ordinary first. I drove the 40 minutes from my apartment to my parents' house, arriving early like I always do, because someone has to peel the potatoes, and it was never going to be Dana. I'm a pediatric nurse. I hold small, scared hands for a living, and I'm very good at staying calm in rooms where everyone else is falling apart. That calm follows me home. At my parents' house, I'm the one who carves, who refills, who notices Grandpa's water glass is empty before he asks. Nobody thanks me. It's just understood that Avery handles things. My sister Dana arrived an hour late with her husband Kyle and a bottle of wine she never opened, and the house rearranged itself around her the way it always does. My mother lit up. My father stood. I stayed at the sink, telling myself, like I told myself every year, that I didn't mind being the steady one, the one who never caused trouble and never asked for much. I had a job I loved, a savings account I'd built myself, a quiet apartment that was entirely mine. I didn't need their fuss. That's what I believed about myself, right up until the moment they showed me, with an envelope and a card, exactly how little I was worth to them. I'd figured out years ago why my parents stopped investing in me. It wasn't one moment. It was a slow accounting. At 17, I got a scholarship and worked nights to cover the rest, and my parents took that as permission to stop worrying about me. Avery's got it handled. Meanwhile, Dana needed everything, and in my family, need was rewarded like a talent. Her car, her wedding, her down payment, Kyle's failed business idea, all quietly absorbed. Every time Dana held out her hands, they filled them. Every time I stood on my own, they took it as a sign I could be safely ignored. I used to think self-reliance was a virtue. It is. But in some families, being strong just teaches people they can stop holding you. After pie, my mother announced it was time for early Christmas. She handed Dana a cream envelope like a diploma. Inside, a $13,000 Caribbean cruise balcony suite. Tears, hugs, Kyle pumping my father's hand. Then she turned to me, amused. Now we didn't forget you, Avery. She handed me a regular birthday card, slightly bent. Inside, a $2 scratch-off, the cheapest one they sell, and under it my father's blocky handwriting. Don't spend it all in one place. The whole table laughed, not cruelly, worse, warmly. Like they'd found their own joke, genuinely delightful. Because Avery doesn't care about that stuff. Avery will think it's funny too. I looked at the ticket, looked at his handwriting, and said, "Thanks, Dad." Something in me went very quiet. Dana leaned in, cruise brochure still in hand. Don't be like that, Avery. It's the thought that counts. I've turned that sentence over 1,000 times since, because she was right in a way she didn't intend. The thought was the whole point. The thought was that she was worth $13,000 and an ocean view, and I was worth $2 and a joke. Kyle added that the ticket could be the big one, and everyone laughed at the idea of boring, steady Avery winning anything. I didn't make a scene. But I did one small thing I didn't fully understand at the time. I slipped the card into my coat instead of leaving it on the table. I told myself I'd scratch it later for a laugh. Underneath, I think I kept it as evidence. Proof, in my father's own handwriting, of exactly what I was worth. That night I drove home and didn't cry, which surprised me. I felt clear, the way you feel after a fever breaks. I stuck the card on my fridge with a magnet, ticket and all, his handwriting facing out. I wanted to stop pretending I'd imagined the favoritism. That card was not imaginary, and putting it on my fridge was my way of finally telling myself, this is real, and it is not okay. If you've spent years telling yourself you're imagining it too, you're probably not. That's not bitterness. That's just refusing to lie to yourself anymore. The ticket sat on my fridge almost a week. It was a Thursday after a brutal shift. We'd almost lost a kid that night. I came home hollowed out, poured cheap wine, grabbed a coin and scratched it without really looking, expecting nothing. The first number matched, then another, then another. My hands knew before I did. I checked it slowly, the way you double-check a medication dose 4 times over. The number didn't fit on the little card. It said claim at lottery headquarters. I stood alone in my kitchen at 11 at night holding a $2 gag gift, understanding my life had just split into before and after. I didn't sleep. I sat up with the ticket sealed in a sandwich bag, a nurse's instinct, protect the evidence, and the next morning I called in a personal day, something I never do, and drove to a regional lottery office to confirm what I already suspected. $100 million. From a $2 ticket my father gave me as a joke. I didn't scream or cry. The dominant feeling was fear, because I'm the daughter who handles things, and I knew the stories, winners who end up bankrupt, ruined, hunted by their own luck. So I told no one. Not my best friend, not a coworker, and absolutely not my family. I made a list because lists keep me calm. Step 1 wasn't buy a car. Step 1 was find a lawyer, because the most important decisions of my life were about to happen in silence, before anyone knew my name was attached to that number. People ask why I didn't call my family right away. The honest answer is, I almost did. I scrolled to my mother's name, and then I looked up at the card on my fridge. Don't spend it all in one place. It's the thought that counts, Avery. I put the phone down because I knew exactly what would happen. The money would stop being mine and start being owed. My mother would have opinions. Dana would have needs. Kyle would have a business plan within the hour. I'd watched money flow toward whoever cried loudest my whole life, and I wasn't going to let the biggest thing that ever happened to me follow that same current. So I handled it the way I handle a crisis at work, calmly, privately, on my own terms. My lawyer, Patricia Vance, didn't blink at the number, which is how I knew I'd found the right person. Have you told anyone? She asked. When I said no, she smiled. You may be the first sensible winner I've ever met. She explained that in my state, I didn't have to claim as myself. I could form a blind trust, and the trust could claim the ticket. My identity would stay sealed. The crucial part was order of operations. Set up the trust before you claim, because once your name's on that giant check, it's there forever. For 2 weeks, while my family ate leftovers and planned Dana's cruise wardrobe, I quietly did the most important paperwork of my life. The very thing they'd punished me for, being careful, self-sufficient, never needing anyone, was now the exact thing protecting me. We named the trust something deliberately boring. No giant novelty check, no press conference, no local girl makes good headline, just a quiet legal transaction. Then I went back to work. Same scrubs, same scared hands, and not one person knew the tired nurse refilling hand sanitizer was worth $100 million. For 2 weeks I carried the biggest secret of my life, and instead of isolating me, it steadied me. I wasn't a jackpot. I was a nurse who'd gotten lucky and was determined not to let the luck unmake her. The story broke the way these things do: local paper, then every phone in the county. Single winning ticket, $100 million sold in the area. No name, just a region and a staggering number. My hometown lost its mind, and not once did any of them think of me. Dana texted, "Did you hear someone around here won $100 million? Crazy." My mother guessed the hardware store guy. My father bet on someone from his old union. They ran through every name in town except mine, because the idea that boring, independent Avery could be sitting on that kind of money simply did not compute. I was furniture. Furniture doesn't win the lottery. I read Dana's text in the break room and felt something new toward my family, not hurt, not longing. Power. I was holding the answer the whole town was asking for, and the people who'd spent my life underestimating me were the last who'd ever guess. While the town guessed, I sat with a question I'd never had the luxury of asking. What did I actually want? Not what would shut my family up, not what would make them love me. I looked at Dana's glossy cruise photos online, captioned blessed, and felt no envy. 3 weeks earlier, that cruise had felt like proof of my own worthlessness. Now it looked small. I could buy 1,000 of those and not feel it. The money had quietly stripped the power out of the thing that wounded me, because my parents' favoritism only had teeth as long as their resources mattered to me. They didn't anymore. So I made a different list, not things to buy, people to honor. I knew exactly who had treated me like I mattered back when I had nothing to offer. At the top, I wrote one name, Aunt Carol. That night, I pulled down a shoebox I'd carried from apartment to apartment for years. Inside was every gift my parents had ever given me, not Dana's, mine. A gas station keychain still in its plastic. A regifted candle with the old tag barely scraped off. An expired coupon for a store that had closed. A mug with someone else's name crossed out. The physical archive of being an afterthought. I laid the Thanksgiving card on top, the torn scratch-off, my father's note, and sat on the floor surrounded by it, Dana's cruise photos glowing on my phone beside it all. The truth said itself plainly. They didn't forget me. They priced me. Every cheap object was an accurate report of what they thought I was worth. The hurt didn't get bigger. It got quieter, and underneath it, something settled, hard and calm and permanent. I wasn't going to spend $1 trying to change their math. I was going to spend my life proving their math was never about me at all. The first thing I did with real money, I did in total secret. My Aunt Carol, my mother's younger sister, is the reason I know what family is supposed to feel like. She came to my school plays when my parents were at Dana's recital. She taught me to drive. She mailed me $20 in college for something fun, not something sensible. She'd called me on my birthday every year of my life. And she was 60, quietly terrified of losing her house to medical debt she'd never asked anyone for help with. I called Patricia and paid off every cent of it anonymously. No strings, no performance, no ledger. My family gave gifts as a way of keeping score. I just learned you could give a gift as a way of keeping faith, and it felt nothing like winning the lottery. It felt better. The second thing I did was at the hospital where I work. We'd needed a piece of monitoring equipment for 2 years, and there's a family assistance fund that's always empty by spring. I made an anonymous donation through the trust, large enough to buy the equipment outright and seed the fund for years. I watched my coworkers read the email with tears in their eyes, and I cried right along with them, and nobody knew the gift was standing in the room in the same scrubs. By the time my family found out about the money, I had already spent a meaningful chunk of it, not on cars or revenge, but on the people who'd loved me when I was worth nothing to anyone. That wasn't an accident of timing. That was the whole answer. The leak, when it came, was almost stupidly ordinary. The convenience store clerk remembered my father buying a single $2 ticket as part of a stack of holiday cards, and mentioned the winning ticket had been a gift given away to family. A sharp cousin did the math and remembered Thanksgiving, Gary Crawford handing his other daughter a $2 scratch-off as a joke. Her text landed on a Tuesday. "Avery, that lottery ticket, was that the one your dad gave you? Did you win?" I didn't answer. I finished my shift, calm hands, steady voice, knowing that by the time I clocked out, my whole life would be ringing. Before the storm hit, I got one call I'll keep forever. Aunt Carol, sobbing not from sadness. "Somebody paid all my bills, Avery, all of it, anonymous." "Who does that?" I closed my eyes and didn't tell her, because the gift was only clean if it stayed quiet. "You deserve every good thing," I said. Sometimes the world just pays you back for being good. I felt the difference sharp as a blade. In hours, my phone would fill with people who'd priced me at $2. suddenly desperate to say they loved me. Here was the one person who'd loved me all along, thanking a stranger with no idea the stranger was me. It started that evening with my mother's name lighting up the dashboard, then my father. Then Dana, then Kyle, then names I hadn't heard from in months, all stacking up like dominoes from some group text I wasn't part of. I let every single one ring out and watched the missed call counter climb, feeling calm, the way I feel when a family is panicking in a hospital room and someone has to be the still point. By the time I finally looked, the screen showed 79 missed calls. I read every text. My mother, sweetheart, we are so happy for you. We love you so, so much. Dana, OMG Avery, I'm literally crying happy tears. You deserve this. Kyle, huge congrats, I've actually got some really smart ideas for protecting and growing that kind of money. Family sticks together, we love you so much. You deserve this. Not one of them said, I'm sorry. Not one said, we've treated you terribly. In their minds, nothing needed apologizing for, I'd just gotten lucky. And now it was time for the family to gather around the luck. The 100 million hadn't taught them anything except that I was finally worth calling. I listened to the voicemails the next morning. Kyle's ran 4 minutes, barely any congratulations, mostly him appointing himself manager of my fortune, insisting we keep this in the family. Dana's tried to be sincere, apologizing for the cruise, calling herself my biggest fan, and in the same breath mentioning she and Kyle had been eyeing a bigger house. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could all finally be comfortable? The apology and the ask fused so tightly you could barely see the seam. My mother's voicemail I saved for last. Long, warm, the performance of her life. Avery, my baby girl, a name she hadn't used since before I became the easy one. She'd always known I was special, she said. This family had always been there for each other through thick and thin. She loved both her girls equally, always had. She just wanted everyone together for Christmas, because that's what matters, not money, never money. Not money, never money, from the woman who'd handed me $2 3 weeks before that money turned out to be mine. I made my decision standing in my kitchen, her voice filling the apartment with love she'd never shown me when it was free. I wasn't going to scream or block their numbers or vanish. Those were small revenges that would let them call me bitter, dramatic, overreacting. I was going to do the one thing they could never spin. Show up at Christmas, calm, tell the truth out loud in front of everyone, set a boundary they couldn't cross, and bring the card. I chose Christmas on purpose, not just for an audience, but because private is where my family does its best erasing. In private, my mother could cry and reframe, and by the next week the story would be that Avery got money and got mean. Not this time. Let the aunts and cousins and grandparents hear it together, the same people who'd laughed at my card on Thanksgiving, so there'd be no version to rewrite afterward. The night before Christmas, Aunt Carol called again, not about the money, to check on me, the only one of 79 calls that actually meant it that way. You don't owe them anything, she told me. Not the money, not an explanation, not your forgiveness. Whatever you decide tomorrow, I'm on your side. You were never the easy one to me. You were the best one. I sat down, because that was the thing I'd been starving for my whole life, and it had been there all along, just not from the people I'd been trained to want it from. I picked up the card. I was ready. My parents' house at Christmas was a different country than it had been at Thanksgiving. The whole room turned toward me like sunflowers, the exact treatment that had always belonged to Dana. My mother rushed me before my coat was off. There's my girl. My father knocked over the footrest standing up. Dana had postponed her cruise to be with family, which is to say she'd canceled a balcony over the Caribbean the instant she learned where the real money was. Presents with my name on them, big ones, sat under the tree for the first time in my life. My mother steered me to the good chair, the one I'd never once been offered, and pressed wine into my hand while everyone talked at once. Congratulations, love, how proud. I let it happen for a few minutes because I wanted to remember the whole show before I spoke. When it crested, I set down the wine and said quietly, "Can I say something?" The room hushed instantly. 3 weeks earlier, I couldn't have gotten this family to quiet down if I'd stood on the table. Now I was worth listening to. I noted that too. I stood so I could see every face. 3 weeks ago, in this house, my parents gave Dana a $13,000 cruise. And they gave me this. I held up the bent card, the empty space where the scratch-off had been, my father's handwriting plain across the bottom. A $2 lottery ticket with a note from my dad. Would you like me to read it? Nobody answered. I read it anyway, calm into the silence. Don't spend it all in one place. I let it sit. Everybody laughed that night. It's the thought that counts, Dana told me. She was right. The thought was that she was worth $13,000, and I was worth $2. I told them why I'd kept it, because for the first time in my life I'd stopped pretending it didn't mean anything. That the gifts had always told the truth this family wouldn't say out loud. That I'd put it on my fridge and finally believed what it was telling me. Then I told them I scratched it, and it was worth $100 million. I said the number plainly and watched it move through the room like current. I told them I'd claimed it quietly through a trust, which is why it took 3 weeks, and a convenience store clerk to find me. And in those 3 weeks, before any of them called, I'd already decided what to do with it. I set the card down on the coffee table, face up. I paid off Aunt Carol's medical debt anonymously because she came to my school plays while you were all at Dana's recital. I gave to the children's hospital where I work. I'm setting up a scholarship for nursing students putting themselves through school alone, the way I did. Then I looked at my mother. You valued me at $2 for 34 years. Now that the $2 turned into $100 million, I'm your baby girl again. I'm not going to fund anyone in this room. It's not revenge. It's just the receipt. The warmth curdled into something honest. My mother cried that I'd punish family over a joke. Kyle stood, red-faced, insisting it was family money, that I couldn't sit on it while my own parents needed help. It's not family money, I said. It's mine. It just happened to be the daughter you gave it to as a joke. Dana started the old reflex, Avery, it's the thought that, and stopped, hearing her own Thanksgiving words coming back at her. Her face crumpling into something that, for 1 second, looked like real shame. I didn't raise my voice once. I stood there calm and let them be exactly as loud and grasping as they wanted to be, in front of the grandparents, the aunts, everyone whose good opinion they cared about. The louder they got about the money, the more clearly the room saw what they'd always been. I picked up my coat and left the card right there on the table. They could keep it, I had what it taught me. Merry Christmas, I said at the door. I do love some of you. I just won't be buying any of you. I drove home, and the quiet in the car felt like the cleanest thing I'd ever breathed. My mother told the extended family the money had gone to my head, that I'd turned my back on my own blood. Fewer believed her than she'd hoped. They'd all been in that room, and you can't unsee a woman screaming about owed millions next to a $2 card. I kept the money in the trust, managed carefully. I funded the nursing scholarship and quietly named it after Aunt Carol, letting her think it was a coincidence. I kept working my shifts. I didn't buy a mansion, just a nicer apartment with a real guest room, a reliable car, and the freedom to never again sit at a table where my worth was up for debate. Dana texted a month later, I'm sorry for Thanksgiving and for a lot of years. You didn't deserve any of it. I didn't answer right away, but I didn't delete it either. I put it in a manner of speaking in a different shoebox, the one where I keep things that might someday be worth keeping. I still work at the hospital. I still hold small, scared hands. Most days, nobody there knows what's in the trust, and I like it that way. My door stays open to the people who valued me when I was worth nothing. To Aunt Carol, always. To Dana, maybe, slowly, if the apology keeps being real and free of asking. It stays closed to anyone who only found their love for me at the bottom of $100 million. I don't keep the card on my fridge anymore. I don't need the reminder. The people who price you cheap are only ever telling you what they're worth, not what you are. So that's how a $2 joke taught my family the real cost of underestimating someone. If there's someone in your life who keeps handing you the cheap gift, believe them the first time. Then go spend your one wild life on the people who never once put a price on you. If this reached you, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for the next one.